Let's talk about comparing and contrasting quadrilaterals. First, let's look at some key words. The first word is parallel. Lines that are in the same plane that do not intersect are parallel lines. These lines are parallel because they will not intersect. We call these lines intersecting because there's a point that they touch or intersect. The next word is congruent. Two figures are congruent to one another if they have the same size and the same shape. The two figures below are congruent because they are the same size and shape. The next word is right angle. An angle of 90 degrees is a right angle. The corner of your paper makes a 90-degree angle. Now let's talk about some different quadrilaterals. A quadrilateral is any polygon with 4 sides. A trapezoid is a quadrilateral with exactly 1 pair of parallel sides. A parallelogram is a quadrilateral with 2 pairs of parallel sides that are opposite each other. A rectangle is a parallelogram with 4 right angles. A rhombus is a parallelogram that has 4 congruent sides, and a square is a parallelogram with 4 congruent sides and 4 right angles. Let's look at some examples. This first shape has 1, 2, 3 different sides. It is not a quadrilateral, and therefore it is not any of these other shapes because it only has 3 sides. Let's look at the next one. This shape has 1, 2, 3, 4 sides, so it is a quadrilateral. It has 2 sets of parallel sides, and that makes it a parallelogram. It has 4 right angles, which makes it a rectangle. We commonly call this shape a square because it has 4 sides that are congruent. A rectangle does not have to have 4 congruent sides, but a square must have 4 congruent sides. If we take a look at a rectangle, we notice that when we draw a diagonal from each corner, where the lines intersect do not form right angles. You can see that this is an obtuse angle, and we have acute angles, another obtuse angle, an acute angle. When we look at a square and we draw our diagonals, the intersecting lines form right angles. Now let's continue and look at a rhombus. This shape is also a rhombus because it is a parallelogram that has 4 congruent sides. All squares are rhombuses, but not all rhombuses are squares. This shape is not a trapezoid because a trapezoid has exactly 1 set of parallel lines. Let's look at the next one. This shape has 1, 2, 3, 4 sides, so it is a quadrilateral. It is not a parallelogram because it does not have 2 sets of parallel sides. The only sides that are parallel are shown here. It is not a rectangle because it does not have 4 right angles. It is not a square because the sides are not congruent and it does not have 4 right angles. It is not a rhombus because all the sides are not congruent. This shape is a trapezoid because it has exactly 1 set of parallel sides. Here's our next shape. We have 1, 2, 3, 4 sides. It's a quadrilateral. We have 2 sets of parallel sides. There's one. Our second set of parallel sides that are opposite each other. So it is a parallelogram. We have 4 right angles. So it is a rectangle. All the sides are not congruent, so it is not a square or a rhombus. And it has more than one set of parallel sides, so it is not a trapezoid. Our next shape, we count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 sides. So it is not a quadrilateral, a parallelogram, a rectangle, a square, a rhombus, or a trapezoid. In this figure, we count 1, 2, 3, 4 sides. It is a quadrilateral. We do not have 2 sets of parallel sides, so it is not a parallelogram. We don't have 4 right angles, so it's not a rectangle. We do not have 4 congruent sides or 4 right angles, so it is not a square. It's not a rhombus because it does not have those 4 congruent sides. And it is not a trapezoid because it does not have one pair of parallel sides. In this shape, we count 1, 2, 3, 4 sides. It's a quadrilateral. We have one set of parallel sides and another, so a total of 2 sets of parallel sides, which makes this shape a parallelogram. We do not have right angles, so it's not a rectangle or a square. It also does not have congruent sides, 4 congruent sides, so it's not a square or a rhombus. And it has more than one set of parallel sides, so it's not a trapezoid, which you need one set exactly. And let's look at our last shapes. We see here 2 shapes that each have 4 sides. Quadrilateral. We have 2 sets of parallel sides. So we have parallelograms. We do not have 4 right angles, so it's not a rectangle. We do not have 4 right angles again, so it's not a square. But these shapes are rhombuses because the sides are congruent. A rhombus does not have to have right angles, but the sides must be congruent. So we would call these rhombuses. It's not a trapezoid because we have 2 sets of parallel sides. A trapezoid needs 1 set of parallel sides. And that concludes our lesson on identifying and comparing quadrilaterals.